Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Just to add a quick bit of context to the video you're about to watch, I've been reviewing the Gigabyte B450 Aorus M motherboard. And when I tried to do a BIOS update on it so I could drop a Ryzen 3600 in it, it went horribly wrong. So, roll the film. So before I actually fire this thing up with a Ryzen 3000 in it, I've got to BIOS update it. Now I was going to do all of this bit off camera because I've already got a video in the works on how to do BIOS updates. So I can just start pointing people to a card in the top right corner of the screen instead of having to do it on every single video. However, the BIOS updates for this board had a lot of scary looking red text against them. So I thought we'll actually record this just because it looks like there might be a bit more to it on this bit. Let's take a look at what's on the Gigabyte website. So as you can see, on the top BIOS updates we've got here, before updating your BIOS to this new version, you must follow the steps as BIOS F40's notes description in advanced. Okay, let's roll down to F40. No, if you're using QFlash utility to update the BIOS, make sure you've updated the BIOS to F32 before 40. Right, okay, so we might have to pre-update this to F32 first. And number two, before update BIOS to F40, you have to install EC firmware update tool or later version to avoid 4DIMM DDR compatibility on 3rd gen Ryzen. Woo lad, I've never had to go through these kind of hoops to do a BIOS update before, but then on the other hand, I think this is my first time BIOS updating a B450 motherboard for Ryzen 3. The previous couple of times I've done this has been on X470. So whatever, let's follow the instructions. The first thing I'm going to do is put in my flashing chip, which is an A8 9600. Yeah, A8 9600. I'm going to put this in there and check what version we've already got. Now, because that firmware update tool is a Windows tool, I might actually have to get a Windows installation onto an SSD or something so I can get this thing into Windows to update it, which is, wow, see, that's not a big deal for me, but if you're doing this as a home update, then that's a bit of a hassle. I'm not sure if other boards are actually going to require you to do this, and I'm actually going to look into it in a minute. So stay tuned. We're going to get this thing up and running, and then we'll see whether this is actually quite a rigmarole that only this board has to go through. Let's get it turned on and see what's in the BIOS. Okay, the board power cycled once before it posted, but that's completely normal for a new motherboard, so not surprising at all. I've said this in many videos, but I'll always remind people, don't panic if your brand new motherboard takes a long time to post. Completely normal. Right, BIOS has been reset. Okay, let's see what we've got. So, BIOS version, what do we got? CPU, easy mode, BIOS. Okay, let's drop into easy mode. That often gives you a lot of information at face value. Here we go. Right, BIOS version F2. Wow. Okay, so we've got a super early BIOS on this thing. So it's picking up everything we've got in here correctly. We've got our A8 9600 and 16 gigs of RAM. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, fine. We've got to do everything with this then. And the other thing as well is I noticed if we go back into classic mode, our BIOS update utility is QFlash. So we've got to do all this red text stuff as well. Okay, I've preemptively downloaded BIOS version F32 and the second to latest version. I've downloaded F32, which is the first one we've got to jump up to, and F41, which is the latest version that retains the PCI Express Gen 4 bodge, because I want to do testing on that later on down the line, so I'm going to retain that compatibility in. So first we're going to take this thing up to F32, then I'm going to get a Windows installation on there so we can take a look at this firmware update utility and find out if you actually need to run that or not. Uh-oh. We are stuck in a no post. It's bouncing between CPU and DRAM and not going any further at the moment. And it's had a couple of minutes now. I've just kind of left it just to see if it'll come good on its own. And we don't seem to be getting anywhere. This was just the F32 update that had no warnings attached to it. So I haven't tried to do anything out of the ordinary yet. So yeah, this looks like this could be a hassle. So apparently it's getting stuck on DRAM. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn it off and turn it on again. So power off at the CPU. Let's just let it settle. And then I'm just going to turn it back on and just give it another spin and just see if it comes good. So we're going to be looking at these lights here. We need that to move all the way around, but once again it just bounced from CPU to DRAM again. That doesn't look good. Just a quick side note here, there's going to be a lot of stopping and starting as I try to boot this computer over and over and over and over again. So I'm going to cut out like the 10 seconds of no post each time, because otherwise we're going to be here all day. But trust me, every time I try and boot this thing, I'm giving it a good 10 or 15 seconds to show me anything at all, any signs of life. But I am going to chop those off just so there's less dead space in this video. Nope. Okay. I'm going to move, let's take one RAM module out and let's run it with a single RAM module. How are we doing for temperature? Oh, we've got no heat in that at all. That's fine. Okay, we've knocked that down to a single module. Let's give it another try. Same thing. All right, let's move my memory module to, let's go to slot 2. This is 3400 RAM. It's pretty high. But of course, we don't have XMP or anything like that turned on, so we're just running it at peasant speeds right now. Shouldn't be an issue. Oh, what was that? Full start? Now it doesn't want to do anything. All right. It doesn't like that at all. Okay, let's go to next slot along. I'm going to try these slots one by one until I get some kind of result, but it's not happy. I've never had this kind of issue doing a BIOS update before. Not unless there's been known issues anyway. Same. Okay, let's switch out to another module. Let's put the other module into the same slot. Then we'll move it back to the top slot again. This thing's turbo dead. It won't do anything. Huh. Time for BIOS reset. Battery out. Power's off at the socket. Let's walk away for 10 minutes. 10 minutes later. Have I bricked this motherboard? BIOS battery back in. Power on. Actually, I'm going to power off again. I'm going to switch back to the other RAM module, the last one that I saw it posting. Let's try again. All right. So it's turning on now. That's an improvement over where we were. It looks like we're still power cycling though. So I think what I got to do is find out how you actually trigger off the backup BIOS on one of these boards, because the backup BIOS on the low-end Gigabyte boards, unfortunately, they don't give you just a simple switch. The higher-end boards have got a nice little dip switch, so you can flip between which BIOS you're using, but you don't get on that on the lower-end ones. It's supposed to be automatic or something. So I got to do a quick bit of research to find out how you actually say fall back. I think it's supposed to be automatic, but this thing ain't posting. So let's look it up. Okay, method 1, press and hold the start button until it turns off again. Here we go. Okay. And then turn it on. That doesn't look like it's made any difference. Well, it's getting stuck on DRAM, so let's find some different RAM. Right, here is some probably 2400 megahertz RAM. This is out of my PC at home. Can't remember what speed it is. It's not very high. I was feeling poor at the time, and I'm putting it in the wrong way round. I've just walked through the door this morning. Right, okay, let's see if we can get the day on track. Power on. Give me a post. Still doing the same thing. It's not a memory compatibility issue. Well, so much for having useful diagnostic LEDs and dual BIOS, because I'm not getting any help from either right now. Normally these things would help you out, but yeah, I don't know what's happened here. I'm going to leave that to run for a bit just in case it comes good with the different memory in it. I'm going to go make a coffee. Well, I was really hoping that memory was going to work, so that's scuppered my morning. Okay, so status report. Our motherboard is bricked. It's not the memory. There's no way this memory is incompatible, and it is in the correct slot. It's in slot 1. We have flashed to a mid-age BIOS, which had no warnings attached to it. There was no red text on it. Let's check that website again, just to make sure I'm not being a complete dunce. We went up to F32, and no, there are no warnings on F32. Let's roll back a little bit, just make sure there's no red text there. Update chipset driver version. No, that's not going to be a problem. And there's nothing there. They jumped from 5 to 30. But yeah, there's nothing there that makes me believe that I made a mistake. So I don't. So yeah, this ain't my fault. And the problem is that we haven't flashed high enough to support the Ryzen 3000 either. So the 3600 that I have to go into this board, that's not going to work either. But what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to put the 3600 in there. Not because I think it's going to work, but it might force the motherboard to detect a change and do something. Because motherboards do weird things when you start messing them about, which I've said in many videos before. They get upset, they take a long time to post, that kind of thing. So I'm actually going to try and induce an upset into the system, and that might get it to detect the APU again, or you never know, it might cause it to roll back its BIOS. Of course, I'm assuming that it hasn't updated the backup BIOS yet. I mean, there's no reason for it to have. That would be really dumb. Now, this should be the celebratory moment where I put in my 3600. I'm quite excited to build this computer. Not because it's a top-end rig or anything, but it's just going to be nice to have. This is going to be part of my new reviewing build. So I've actually got a dedicated computer to put parts in that I'm reviewing. So kind of excited for it, really. And this is a bit of an inauspicious start to its lifespan. Where's the cooler gone? There it is. All right, we'll put a cooler on top of that for good measure. Okay, power on. Okay, so that rolled past CPU onto DRAM again. That I wasn't expecting. I don't believe it, it's posting. Well, it rolled round to VGA then. Oh, we've got no VGA. This CPU doesn't have graphics. I think we might actually have a boot here, but that doesn't make any sense because the BIOS that I flashed is not supposed to have Ryzen 3000 support. Right, let's get this handy graphics card in that I've got to hand. I'll just wait for the lights to go out. There we go. Sitting on that VGA light again. Oh, there we go. It's posted. Okay. All right, let's get this thing into BIOS and let's see what the hell is flashed to it right now. Maybe it rolled back. Who knows? Right, okay. Control delete. We're going to spam delete. This doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for it to be booting right now. I mean, I'm not complaining because we're out of our soft brick. Right, BIOS has been reset. What version is it? BIOS version F40. Yeah, we jumped straight up to F40. No, we didn't. Because I'll tell you what else happened. Last night, after I bricked this board, I went home and I took the footage with me. And I watched that footage back. I was like, did I flash the wrong BIOS? Did I do something wrong? And I watched that footage and I watched myself select F32. Ooh, something strange is going on here. And what's more, I didn't download F4. Oh, no, I did download F40. No, I didn't. I downloaded F32 and F41. I think there's a broken link on the Gigabyte website. Oh well, you know what, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain. Fine. Alright, so we now have a booting board. I'm going to drop in my Patriot RAM, and then I'm going to do a test installation of Windows, and I'm going to get this thing into Windows. Has that crashed? Because the... yeah, it's crashed. Oh, I don't like that at all. Okay, let's turn that off a sec. Yeah, the chip is cold. It's not overheating with my perched CPU. I've never had a CPU overheat while I'm doing this, so yeah, this is okay. Right, okay. Theories. So we have seen on the last time I was flashing a board, when I flashed it up to the latest BIOS version, the newest BIOS didn't support my APU. But ironically, despite the fact that the red text on the website specifically said that this APU would not be supported after flashing, it did still work, which is why I had not considered that a possibility. But it might be that on this board, they have dropped support for that APU and it doesn't work. And when it worked for me last time, that was just a fluke. Or maybe a quirk of the X470 chipset or something like that. Either way, I suspect that I've jumped to BIOS version. I've gone up to F40 when I was aiming for F32, and I've lost support for my APU, which is why it wouldn't work with the APU in it. And now we've put in a newer chip, it has worked. So, fine. So I definitely think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead at this point. However, I don't like that crash we just had. So what I think, let's pull out the flash drive, and I'm going to get an SSD and a Windows 10 flash drive plugged in, and we're going to see if we can start installing Windows 10 on this thing. I'm just going to put away my APU just before that gets damaged, because I do leave CPUs lying around, but you don't really want to do it long term. The longer it's sitting out for, the more likely something is to happen to it. Okay, so what do I need? I need a SSD and a Windows 10 drive. Okay, right, SSD is connected. Windows 10 flash drive is in the back. Let's turn it on again. I don't like that crash in BIOS we had. Crashes in BIOSes are never a good sign, but maybe it'll settle out after a couple of boots. We're booting Windows. All right. Let's do it. Oh. Oh dear. I'm going to try mem testing this. I don't know if my mem test flash drive is up to date. What I think we're going to do is swap back out to the Patriot RAM, because at this point the Patriot RAM should work. And I think that might sort our issue out. These lockups, this feels like a memory issue to me, because it's random and unprompted and there's no reason for it. And when that's happening, most of the time you've probably got a memory problem. No immediate errors, and for a memory module that is, well, for a system that is crashing during early into the Windows setup, if it was memory, I would expect to see errors right away. So it looks like this is a red herring. Look at that core count. We're into the ABs. I like that. I think we're okay, but the next thing I'm going to try anyway, if it locks up again, I'm going to stick the Wraith Stealth cooler I've got. I've got an AMD Wraith cooler in the box here, which I was going to leave in the box because it's not going to get used in the build that I'm doing. I've got an all-in-one water cooler to go onto this. Okay, we've had a decent runtime in mem test now. We haven't gone through the whole test, but at this point, the system seems to be stable, and I've no reason to believe that this memory is faulty right now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off again, and I'm going to swap back out to the Patriot memory, and we're going to have another go at booting the Windows setup. The other thing that has occurred to me is the last time I unplugged this Windows 10 flash drive, I didn't safely eject it, so that might be it as well. It'd be really unlucky if that was the case, but you never know. Okay, in goes the Patriot RAM. And this stuff will probably need setting up to get it up to the correct speed. It's probably going to start out at like 2133 or something like that. And I'll need to switch on XMP to get it up to 3600. However, I'm not particularly worried about RAM speed right now. I just want this system to run. So, right, that all looks good. Power on. Let's try for the Windows setup again. I'm going to be very interested when I actually get to editing this video to see whether God damn it. Fine. Attempted to write to read-only memory. Okay, we've got different RAM in this time. I'm going to try a different Windows 10 flash drive. Okay, we're booting with a different Windows 10 flash drive connected now that's got some version of Windows 10 on it. I don't know what, and I don't really care right now. I'm not worried about Windows 10 being up to date. This is just a test install to make sure that this platform is actually working. And again, it's taking a while to post. Considering we had a successful post and a clean shutdown previously, well, I cut the power, I suppose. So either way, I still don't like the way this board is behaving. I'm still not really very happy with it. I think we're going to have to do another BIOS flash on it because I don't like this BIOS version at all. I've got all kinds of concerns about it. And like originally when it first posted, I was like, right, we're going to leave this BIOS version on it because it's working and I'm not going to risk bricking the board again. However, right now, this platform, this motherboard and just this setup is all over the place. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the original plan and we're going to take this thing up to F42. That's Windows 7. No, I don't want that. Gross. We'll turn that off. You know what? Sod it. I'm going to go back to the original plan. We're doing another BIOS update. I have a suspicion that if I'd gone straight up to F42 in the first place, we wouldn't have had a problem. Just show you what those LEDs are doing. So you see what I mean? You can see it going round and round there. And it's just, what are you doing? It should just go CPU, DRAM, VGA, boot, lights go out, post. It should just go straight through them and switch off. And we're going through this song and dance every time it starts up. Okay, right, we're into BIOS, but I've got no mouse. Has the system crashed again? Yeah, the system's crashed again. Good gravy. What is wrong with this thing? Okay, I'm going to get a CPU cooler properly mounted on this. Just so I can be certain that it's nothing to do with that, because we might be getting burst heat here, because like the CPU cooler is cold, and if I remove the CPU cooler, the chip is tepid at best. It's basically cold. However, the thing is that modern chips can go from 20 degrees to 100 degrees in less than a second. So there's no guarantee that this thing isn't flashing up to high temperature before the perched CPU cooler can react. Now, I haven't had a problem with that happening in the past when doing BIOS flashes and stuff like that. However, I've got to consider that that's a possibility. And, you know, like if someone else came into my shop and described this problem, I would say, you know, what kind of cooling have you got on there? And they said, oh, I'm just perching a CPU cooler on top of it. I'd be like, okay, that should work, but try clamping your CPU cooler. So I'm going to take my own advice. We've got to remove the AMD clamps because the Wraith Stealth doesn't use these. Right, power back on. Right, let's do Flair Testing first. And I'm going to try the same Windows 10 flash drive that I was previously using and see if the problem has disappeared after clamping the CPU cooler properly. Because if the problem disappears now, then it was an overheating issue, and that's completely my bad. So let's put that to the test. I want a different BIOS on this board. That's not right. I expect this when I have just changed something, but we've had like 3 or 4 posts with this exact hardware configuration now, with the graphics card, the RAM, and the CPU in it. I expect this if I've changed the RAM or the CPU. I do not expect this if I've had a couple of boots with all this hardware in there. I mean, it's starting, but it should not be taking that long to post right now. That's not right. But let's see if it'll install Windows on this SSD. I've got a mouse, that's a good start. And it's different again. Kernel Auto Boost Lock Acquisition with raised IRQL. Fine. Let's unplug the flash drive. Let's put in the BIOS flash drive. And we'll try and get it back into BIOS and see if I get a mouse. The problem is like, this thing is not stable, and trying to do a BIOS flash while it's behaving like this is quite frankly suicidal. And the mouse is locked up again. It hadn't crashed though. It was the counters in the top right were still changing. Have we got a PS2? Yeah, we've got a PS2 port on this. Right. Run a computer shop. Make sure you've got a PS2 keyboard. You never know. You never know. Okay. And we've probably got to reset for this because PS2 keyboards aren't hot swappable. Sometimes you get away with it, but you don't by spec. God, what bizarre layout is this keyboard? Ugh. Right, so we dropped into BIOS and it's locked up again straight away. And numlock isn't responding either. If numlock on your keyboard doesn't respond, then that's a really bad sign. And I'm guessing we've got no caps lock either. No, that's a really low level function. So PS2 keyboard is not helping. So it's not a USB issue. Otherwise we wouldn't be having problems there. Right, I think I'm going to stop recording for a sec. And I'm just going to leave this thing turned off for an hour. I'm just going to leave it to settle. And then we're going to come back and we're going to try and flash the BIOS again. Actually, there's one more thing I'm going to do as well. I'm going to do another BIOS reset. I'm going to drop the RTC battery out of it, and we're going to try another BIOS reset and just see if that sorts it as well. I'm just waiting for the standby rail to go out because, there we go. My Antec power supply takes quite a while to turn off. Oh, I think that might have done the job though. I've got a mouse. Okay, so let's drop back to easy mode. So we're on BIOS version F40. And it's crashed. I'm turning it off for a while. It lasted for a little bit longer. I think I'm going to leave it turned off until like at least after my lunch break. So we're going to give it a couple of hours. And then we'll come back to it and we'll see if we can just rush through and just smash a new BIOS onto that before it locks up again. Okay. It's now a couple of hours later. This thing has been left to sit for a while. Let's try it again. So I've got two choices. I can either rush to try and update the BIOS again, or I can try and restore the backup BIOS from inside the BIOS. I'm not sure if that is going to help me or not. I'm going to try and push for a newer BIOS. So we're going to go for the flash if it will let me. Let's see how this goes. Power on. We're black screening again already. We didn't even make it into BIOS. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I think I might just have to admit that I've got a bad motherboard. Went into BIOS and it's just immediately jammed up again. No response at all. See, what I really can't understand is that if I leave it and don't try and go into the BIOS, then it's fine. I can sit here on no boot device found and it's fine. It's just when I go into the BIOS. That BIOS file was really screwy and it's really messed this board up. But because I can't get into the BIOS, I can't do anything about it. Unless I try and do a DOS BIOS flash. I hate doing that because to do that I've got to prep a drive up for it and everything. We might have to do this BIOS flash the old-fashioned way, where you had to get a bootable floppy drive, get into a DOS environment, and use like I can't remember the name of it now, but a command line flashing program. Those were really spooky doing those because you had to type in all the file names correctly and stuff like that back in the bad old days. But that might just be a solution to this. Let's try the BIOS one more time. Is there anything I can do to simplify this setup? There isn't. Unless, I tell you what else I could try doing. If I look at the post screen, can I jump straight into Q-Flash from post? Because that'd work. I'm going to keep an eye along the bottom row of the screen when it comes back round again. Let's see if this works. Right. Is it responsive? It is responding. And then it crashed. It responded for a short amount of time and then it crashed. Oh! It's right there. I'm so close to having this thing working. I'm so close to having it working, but like even if I was really quick and I went update BIOS, enter, 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 you know, it's not going to get through the flashing process. It's going to lock up halfway through the flash process and then I'll have a corrupted BIOS. Can it tell me what's in the backup? Right, I'm hacked off with this thing, so it's time to get spooky. Hot air station, we're going to manually swap the BIOS chips around. So we're going to take them both off the board, swap them over, put them back on again the other way around. So what this is going to do is put the backup BIOS chip here into the main BIOS position. So these things, it's refusing to do any kind of BIOS backup itself. So we're going to do it manually. We should find the F2 BIOS on the backup chip. So doing it this way, I can forcibly revert to the previous BIOS version. Let's see how this goes. Okay, right, I'm going to leave all of that to cool off, then we'll start it up and we'll see if we've achieved anything or if I've truly shagged the board. Although I've done some wacky stunts like this with BIOS chips before, they're surprisingly tough. Gosh, heck it, I forgot to hit record. Okay, right, status update. Completely forgot to hit record, so it worked. We got into BIOS. I sat in the BIOS for about 20 seconds and it didn't crash. So I think what's happened is we're still on BIOS version F40, but I think we had a bad flash on the main BIOS, but a good one on the backup BIOS. And swapping the chips over seems to have done the trick. So because it hasn't crashed, what I've done is I've now started a BIOS update up to F41, so we can get off of that really dodgy F40 and get onto what should be a known good. And touch wood, we seem to be okay. It has not locked up and the BIOS update is proceeding. So just fingers crossed, man. I think we might be able to salvage this board after all. However, when I was going in there, I checked the file names again and I had the correct version. I did not do anything wrong with this. That was a bad download from the Gigabyte website. So poor show, Gigabyte. You bricked my motherboard. I'm not pulling my punches there. Anyway, let's get this thing through, and I think we've salvaged this board now. Woo, lads. The telltale click of the Antec PSU starting up again lures me across. Is this thing going to post again after the BIOS update? Who knows? Hey, I think we're doing all right. Did I miss BIOS? I think I missed BIOS. No, it's power cycling again. That's fine. It's allowed to do that first thing after a post. Okay, right. BIOS version F41. So, BIOS flash was successful. I'm going to leave it on this screen for a moment and just see if we're stable. One thing I've noticed is we currently have our memory module plugged into slot 1 labelled on the motherboard. And on the previous version of the BIOS, let me just get the thing back up. The previous version of BIOS, I have not moved the memory module from slot 1 down here. Previous version, it was showing as being in the second slot on that list. Now it's gone to this slot, so they've really messed about in this one. They've really shuffled things around. That's probably what they were talking about with the four memory module support thing. I mean, we're completely disregarding all of that red text on the Gigabyte website now. You know, like the original plan was just tiptoeing around that red text, and here we are. God knows how long this video is at this point. I've no idea. I've lost track of time. Like, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of chopping up of all of the footage I've got of this thing not working. What a mess. What an absolute mess this has been. Okay, it does seem to have posted in a timely fashion this time as well. That's another good sign. Again, on the glitchy BIOS, post was taking far too long every single time. Okay, Windows setup. So the last time it crashed when I hit next. Install now. Woo lads, I think we've got it. Oh, look at that. I don't even have a product key. It's thinking about it. Right, I think we're on for a winner here. So I'm going to go ahead and get Windows 10 installed on this thing. Then after that, we'll come back and we'll swap out the memory, and I'll probably stick the Spire cooler back on top, because once I've got all this sorted, I've got to finish filming the review of this motherboard. Okay, there it is. There's the final boot up. So we've got Windows, we've got our Ryzen 3600 working, and I've also got the original Patriot memory in there. It's not running at full speed. I've got to dig around in the BIOS and sort all that out, but the point is we're actually fixed now. So now I can get back to reviewing this thing. I think the issue is that I flashed a bad BIOS, and that bad BIOS was on Gigabyte's website. So yeah, I'm absolutely blaming them for this one. If you've got one of these boards, for all that is holy, do not try and flash F32. Go straight to F42. Do not try and do it sequentially. Just go straight up to the top one. However, we got there in the end, so good gravy. All right, past that, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video, which will hopefully be happier videos about this motherboard. Bye for now.